Now we're going to get some more analysis on President Biden's conversation with President Xi Jinping and get a better understanding of the Chinese perspective. And now I'm joined by Dean Cheng. He's a senior research fellow, Asian Studies Center, and the Davis Institute for National Security and Foreign Policy at the Heritage Foundation. Dean, welcome to Washington Watch.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we're glad to have you. From your perspective, what was President Xi Jinping thinking today during his conversation with President Biden?
Well, I think several things. It's interesting that the Americans are knocking at my door, asking for us to cooperate with them. The question is inevitably going to be, and the White House hasn't been very forthcoming, what did the U.S. offer China? Because China is not exactly known for altruism. China is not exactly going to turn its back on a key partner, which is Russia, for free. There are sanctions against China. There are limits on economic and technological transfer. Did the administration offer anything on that? We haven't heard much from the White House, and the Chinese aren't showing those cards either.
Does China stand to benefit from Russia's current actions or by helping Russia? Or do they just kind of enjoy this position of power where they can stand back and watch people beg them to do something and say no?
Well, I think that the Chinese look at the Russians as an important partner in opposing the United States. They both see the U.S. as a key player in keeping their respective countries from reassuming their rightful place in the world. Both Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin have said point blank, the greatest catastrophe of the 20th century was the collapse of the Soviet Union. So for both of these countries, they want to work together to counter the malign influence, in their view, of the United States. The Chinese are definitely positioned in such a way that they can certainly help Russia take over Ukraine if they wanted to, which thus far they haven't really pushed a lot of assistance. But at the same time, they are looking to see, one, how well does Russia do? They're not doing very well, it seems. But also, what might the rest of the world offer China not to help Russia?
To that point, in your assessment right now, is China actively assisting Russia, or are they just trying to be neutral in this conflict that the rest of the world, for the most part, has taken sides in?
Well, they're definitely not neutral. The Chinese, the public statements, for example, have avoided the word invasion because the Chinese Foreign Ministry has said invasion is a Western term. Russia has legitimate security concerns, and therefore to call it an invasion is to ignore that. China has continued to provide economic, not direct support, but for example, when MasterCard and Visa pulled out of Russia, apparently UnionPay and Alipay, two major Chinese credit cards, began to move in to replace Visa and MasterCard. China has signed deals for energy and continues to import oil and gas, even as the rest of the world sanctions Russia. But thus far as we know, China hasn't directly supplied military equipment to Russia. And I suspect that the Chinese actually expect to be thanked for that, because in their view, why is it okay for the United States, Germany, the UK to provide anti-tank missiles and anti-aircraft missiles to the Ukrainians? And it isn't okay for the Chinese to supply their own versions of anti-tank missiles or artillery shells or the like.
We're speaking with Dean Cheng from the Heritage Foundation. Dean, you mentioned the fact that Russia is seeming to acknowledge legitimate security concerns by the Russian government. Do you think they might be doing that, or have they in any way claimed that the presence of Taiwan is a security concern for China?
Well, what's interesting was in the very early days of the invasion, the Chinese press received directives on how to cover this conflict. Don't call it an invasion. Don't focus on civilian casualties. Very, sort of minimalist reporting. And one of the reasons for this was that China is going to need Russian support when we go after Taiwan. So I think that this is implicitly, at least, a quid pro quo. Russia is cleaning up its borders, is acting against former republics of the Soviet Union. Remember, they said it was a catastrophe that the Soviet Union collapsed. And China is going to eventually make some kind of action regarding Taiwan. Maybe not an invasion, maybe political, maybe economic. But the point here is to say, and we're going to need support. And they are both clearly drawing parallels between Ukraine, Taiwan, and responses to each other.
Dean Cheng, Heritage Foundation. It's concerning news for what that might mean for the future. This may not be the first, or may not be the only conflict we will be having in that part of the world. We hope it is not, but we appreciate you keeping us up to date and for joining us today very much. Thank you.